Welcome to Odds.com's NCAA football kickoff show. Happy Saturday, November 14th to all of you. Here we go, a really good-looking slate of NCAA football games. We've had COVID knock out a bunch of games, which not good. It does allow us to break down each and every game on the card, which is something that I love doing. Big welcome to our experts. We got Big Ragoo in the house. Big Ragoo, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. Refreshed off that Vegas trip from last week. Ready to break down some games with you guys and cash some tickets.
Looking forward to this. John Ryan, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. I always look forward to this. It's always a great time with all you guys.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I've made some moves, not very many, on the card. I'm 2-2 throughout the midweek games, but I'm looking forward to cap these games with you. Shout out to all the cappers we have joining us. Brian Watson in the house. Ashley Waite, Sean Thug ready to go. Gregory Wilson, Art Hayes in the house. Casey Koenig, Hustle Wilson doing exactly that. Hustling. Alan Epstein ready to eat. Casey Koenig, Bill McHugh, Jerry Beatty saying Baylor is the best bet on the board. Swerving. Ralph Portwando, our guy Ralph, OG Lowbagger. We don't get the cap with enough. Happy Saturday to you, Ralph. Waking up bright and early over there on the West Coast. Kirk Gray, Jansen Bonzen, Ron Crawford says, I gave you Army Monday. I hope you got it at +5.5. Ron Crawford always killing with these Monday looks on our Monday show. Great job, Ron. There's Birdie ready to go. Ricardo Gutierrez. Great to see Jansen Bonzen back in action as well. Walter Trotter. We got Wham Bam in the house. We got Chris ready to go. Tori Coker, Sean Dozier, The Don, David Sharp, K. Paul. We got Dick ready to go. Andreas, James Lill, Jesse Allen about to roll. Kevin Movita. Let's get to work, guys. We have a good-looking card ahead of us. We're going to start with the 12 p.m. games. And today we're not overwhelmed with 12 p.m. games. We're going to start, and those of you watching, we're just going to be going down rotation orders, so it's going to be very easy to follow. Just heading down the rotation numbers. And we're going to start with Vanderbilt, Kentucky, the first game on the board here. Kentucky opening up at -17.5. There's -17.5s out there. There's a -17 from the leading indicator books. It was 18 last night, and I almost bet on Vanderbilt, and I held off. Vanderbilt owned. I wanted to talk to you guys about it. There was 3 moves on these 12 p.m. games that I wanted to make, and I was like, you know what, just talk to the guys about it. Vanderbilt 0-5, 0-5 in the SEC. At Kentucky 2-4, 2-4 in the SEC. 2 low-scoring teams battling it out. Vanderbilt coming off a 24-17 loss at Mississippi State. They out-yarded them huge, 478 to 204. 30 first downs to 14, but the 5 turnovers hurt them badly. They come in scoring 12.4 points per game. True freshman quarterback Ken Seals has improved drastically as the season has moved forward. He's thrown for 803 yards the last 2 games, but 3 interceptions last week. Kentucky off last weekend. They come in off their second straight loss, 14-3 at home versus Georgia. They're used to low-scoring games. They can't move the ball through the air. They average 118.5 yards passing a game. They're third in the SEC in rushing, averaging 176.2 yards per game. Vanderbilt is 11th in the SEC in stopping the run, although they looked much better at it last week. Let's start with John Ryan, SEC action, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Should I pull the trigger on Vanderbilt?
If there's a time to do it, Jimmy, I think it might be now. And the reason is that mathematically you have a very low total. It's, I think you said 41 points. So this implies a final score of roughly 29-11 with Kentucky winning. The lower the total, the more chance the dog has to cover, and you just have to take my word on that. It's based on some mathematics, and it's simply on a high level means that that underdog, who's very, very poor team, only has to score a certain number of points. And sometimes we forget that there's turnovers involved, and even though a team is really bad, they can get a pick 6. And in any game where you only need 11 points to be in the money to cover, those plays are huge. Block kicks, any mental mistake by an overconfident favorite, which Kentucky could be in this game. So I like your idea here quite a bit. Now, the other flip side of the coin here, little caveat is, I like the 28-point pivot level. And as you can imagine, Vanderbilt is terrible when they've allowed 28 points. So if you think, like I'm thinking, that Vandy can finally score 14 to 17 points, then this becomes an exceptional opportunity with a lot of value.
Interesting. I wish I probably should have just trusted myself and pulled the trigger last night at 18. Big Ragoo, SEC battle, Vanderbilt, Kentucky.
When I first looked at the number, the total, especially 41 points, I was like, me and 40s in college football, they can creep over 40 pretty easily. But this game here, believe it or not, I think the number is in the right spot as far as the total goes. And as far as you look on Vandy, it might not be a bad play because Vandy does have some key defensive efficiencies that they're good at. And they're good at, racking up yardage on the field, but their point differential when they lose is like, way above 20. And that's a scary thing. Even though Kentucky, their margin is barely like 2 points. So I think you're in a good spot with Vandy here. And I would even, as low as that number is on the total, I think that Vandy's defense is good enough to kind of put Kentucky in check. They're just not very good on the offensive side. They're good at moving the ball up and down the field, but they're not efficient, for scoring points. But like John was saying, you get that one turnover margin, that block kick or something, that big score in a 40-point game like this, points, I'm not going to say they're going to come at a premium, but if a big play happens, then on your side of the ball, then you're in good shape to get to the number. But I think it's a lot of points for Kentucky to put up here, but I would still lean towards the under in the total. I think this game is going to still stay underneath that total.
And that's what Ralph Portwando is saying. We had a low total yesterday in the FAU-FIU game. That went all the way down to 39 before it came back up to 41.5. And you very comfortably took the over. You also took FIU team total over. Congratulations on both those looks. So the 41 number, you easily beat it going over yesterday, and now you're thinking about going under. Are you going to get to the window on the under?
I have a lean on it. I'm going to look at a couple more things before kickoff. I know it's a noon kickoff, but I'm leaning strong towards the under. It's one of my strong leans.
We'll get off the show with time for everybody to get to the window for the 12 o'clock games because I need to as well. James Little says, would you take TCU in the points? Let's go there right now. TCU Horned Frogs, a Big 12 action at West Virginia. I was close to making a move on West Virginia last night. So these were the three of the moves I was close to making. I actually was going to get better than minus 110. It was going to get minus 105 had I moved last night. It's -3 at minus 110. That's the exact opener at Bet 365 as well. TCU coming off their second straight win, 34-18 at home over Texas Tech. They averaged more than 270 yards rushing per game in the last 2 weeks. The Mountaineers allow 153.6 rush yards a game and just 3.26 yards per carry. It was that 3.26 yards per carry that jumped out at me. West Virginia coming off a tough 17-13 loss at Texas. If they can stop TCU's running attack, they win this game, is the way I see it. Maybe I'm simplifying it too much. Let's start with Ragoo this time. Big 12 action. I'm close to pulling the trigger on the Mountaineers. What do you think here?
Yeah, this is a classic Big 12 matchup. West Virginia over the years, they've had a pretty good offensive scheme. At TCU on the defensive side, they've had their troubles putting points up on the board. I think the line is set in a perfect spot here. I don't find a whole lot of value either way on the number or the total here. But you playing at home in Morgantown, that's a tough place to play normally under normal conditions. Less than a field goal, I think, you should be able to get here, but I think I'm seeing some 3.5s that opened up at 2. That's crept up to 3.5. I'm passing on this game, but I think if it's either a West Virginia or a pass for me here, even though TCU is in a tough spot on the defensive side, I think West Virginia could probably, keep enough plays going downfield. I think, they're a well-balanced attack. They put the ball up in the air more than they run. They're like 55-45 on the pass to run ratio. But I think they're both averaging about 6 yards a pass. Third down conversions are pretty equal. So this is going to be a tough game here. It's a pass for me. But I think it'll be an entertaining game for sure.
John Ryan, Big 12 matchup, TCU, West Virginia. Is there a move you're thinking of making?
Well, I'm kind of leaning towards no play at all in this game. And the reason is I don't know a few things about West Virginia. They've been largely inconsistent. They nearly beat the Longhorns last week in a game in which I think they had under 50 yards rushing and were still in that game and a 17-13 loss. So the offense is highly suspect, and I know their running back, his first name's Letty, is listed as probable for this game. Letty Brown, and I haven't seen yet whether he's confirmed starter. I would say this is a caveat that if he starts, my lean is definitely on West Virginia in this matchup. TCU has not lost on the road in 2020, but this is by far their most difficult assignment of the season to go in to West Virginia, as Big Ragoo said, which can be a very difficult venue, students or no students.
I like it. I think I'm going to pull the trigger on West Virginia. Just before we move forward, backs McCrackney with such a strong point, and I should have mentioned it in that Kentucky spot. Let's just very quickly touch on this, Ragoo. What do you think? How do you think Kentucky's going to, the depth of their offensive line coach? Is this a spot where Kentucky just smashes now because of that depth? And should I hold off?
I mean, that could be a key factor in the game, coming out of the locker room, because, these college kids are highly emotional, and maybe it carries over. I mean, it can go the other way too for them, but I doubt that. So I don't know about smashing, but, it's definitely going to be a motivational factor for these kids. I mean, I think they definitely have more talent, but I can't sleep on that number, that big number. And then, like I say, the total, I think there's going to be bodies flying around all over the field on the defensive side on both sides. So I'm still like the under in that one.
Okay, that's a good point from backs. Okay, we're going to move on to Wake Forest. This was a spot that CMAC wanted, and he was saying, wait, let's see if we can get 14. And the 14s never appeared. In fact, there's 11.5s at the leading indicator book. So it's moved quickly towards Wake Forest, and a mistake not pulling the trigger in this ACC battle. After opening their season with 2 losses, Wake Forest now won 4 straight. They last played 2 Saturdays ago in a 38-14 win at Syracuse. They have a conservative offense led by quarterback Sam Hartman, who hasn't thrown a pick all year long. North Carolina bounced back from their 44-41 loss at Virginia by easily defeating Duke 56-24, put up 338 yards on the ground versus Duke. ACC action, John Ryan, Wake Forest, North Carolina, take it away.
Well, with the line going down now, my stuff is much more positive for North Carolina. As you mentioned, Wake Forest has won 4 in a row. They've covered 4 in a row. And we've talked about this time and time again, what happens to the line when a team goes on and starts a winning streak like this, of 4 in a row. The public jumps on it. The betting markets anticipate this type of behavior, and the lines get a little bit inflated. So I really think the line, for example, my power rankings have it as a 17.5 point line. So now that we have all this, what I call irrational exuberance that Wake Forest is going to easily cover and also maybe even upset the Tar Heels, gives me reason to definitely lean on North Carolina here. And I think this will be a game I'll get to the window before noon.
Very, very interesting. We still have high 60s in percentile in cash on North Carolina and 74% of tickets on North Carolina, and yet the market moving towards Wake Forest. Very interesting, and all the guys in the chat interested in Wake Forest, and here we have John Ryan on the other side. That's enough to give me pause, and even the missing on the line is probably going to keep me off of this. Big Ragoo, anything to add to this ACC spot, Wake Forest, North Carolina?
Yeah, I'm going to the window with Wake here. I think a carryover from last year. We know they got off to a slow start. We know we had the departure of the quarterback, Newman. Hartman played some time last year. So I think now that they have their football legs underneath them, I tend to agree with John's breakdown on the maybe recency bias aspect of it. But Wake's a quality football team on the offensive side of the ball. I think it's going to be a track meet, if you want to know the truth. I think I'm not so much leaning towards the over, but I was kind of hoping to get 14 with Wake, but I don't think that's going to happen. You might see it go the other way before kickoff. So if you had any inclination of betting Wake, I would do it right now, because I think that number is going to continue to drop.
And this total has gone from 66 up to 69. All right, we're rolling nice here. Let's move on to Hurricanes, Virginia Tech, Hokies. I got on the over after our Monday show at 66. That's moved up to 69 at the leading indicator books. You can still get 68s and 68.5s, but that's going up. This was another move I almost made last night. Miami Hurricanes money line, and I wish I had of money coming in on Miami. VTech now just a 1-point favorite, 1.5 and 2 still at some books. Let's talk about this. Another ACC battle. Miami coming off third straight win, 44-41 at NC State. Hurricanes have trouble running the ball unless it's in the hands of De'Aaron King. Virginia Tech coming off their second loss in 3 games, 38-35 at home to Liberty. They thought they'd won the game when they blocked the field goal, last-second field goal, returned it for a score, but Fuente, Hokies coach Fuente had called a timeout. And that's what you get for those late timeouts. I'm happy that it blew up in Fuente's face. Liberty ran for 249 yards, and the Hurricanes have to be able to take advantage of that, and I don't know if they can. Virginia Tech star running back Khalil Herbert is dealing with a hamstring injury. His status is uncertain. He only rushed 1 time against Liberty, so I would expect Khalil Herbert not to be in the lineup, but I don't have any proof of that here. Let's go, John Ryan, Miami, Virginia Tech.
Well, this is a great matchup for sure. A couple of days ago, I had released this as a best bet for my clients on Virginia Tech. I still stand by that pick. Derek King has been awesome for the Hurricanes, and you have to note that he is the 4th player in ACC history to throw for 400 or more yards and run for 100 in the same game. So that's up there with some great company and well-deserved. Yet Virginia Tech is flying under the radar here, and I recognize that there are concerns at running back. Despite that, they are right now the best running team in the ACC based on my efficiency ratings, and also looking at expected points per play, which is another key metric that I don't talk about too much here, but it's one of the the drill downs that really enlightens you. You can really see why a team is better than what maybe the flash stats that you see on some other outlets are providing for people. Right now I'm looking at the chart of the visual graphic that I have, and North Carolina actually is the closest team offensively to Virginia Tech right now in the entire ACC. So I know the chat room and everybody else is going to think that I've been drinking this morning already, but I assure you I haven't. Miami's offense, I think we all would agree on the surface that offense is much better than Virginia Tech. Again, after doing all the drill downs, I come to the conclusion that they're about equal. And we have a situation here where I think Miami being number 9 is highly overrated, and the public sees number 9 and they think, oh, wow, they're playing Virginia Tech, it'll kill them. And I think this is one of those times where the public just might be wrong. So I'm on Virginia Tech here.
Well, that'll be enough to get me off of this spot. And you are right. My site says 65% of the cash is on Miami and 80% of the tickets. So that will be enough. Let's see what Ragoo has to say about this very exciting Miami-Virginia Tech spot here in the ACC.
Yeah, it's a classic matchup, no doubt. Like you said, 65%. That's actually the number that Virginia Tech used for rushing plays. That's why they got the number 1 probably rushing in conference. So they're going to be heavily relying upon that run. And I expect Miami's linebackers to get involved early here to try to, put the pressure back onto the quarterback to make him go up through the air. But 2 points at home, and is a short number. Funny thing is that Miami, they actually do better on the road than they do on home with their offense. Point differential-wise, Miami's about a 10-point plus margin, and Virginia Tech's at a 5. I think both teams are going to try to slow each other down in a different way. I think Miami have a more balanced attack versus Virginia Tech, but Virginia Tech is got a pretty decent defense overall. They're both pretty good in the red zone. And the numbers, I think the numbers right where it's at. There might be a little maybe a little bit overreaction on what John was saying with Miami being ranked number 9, but if they weren't ranked number 9, maybe Virginia Tech would be better in the field goal here. But I mean, this could be an upset in the making, no doubt. Miami's due for a letdown also. So I tend to lean that way with Virginia Tech, even though Miami does play a little bit better on the road. a little bit more balanced offense, but defensively, I think they're going to be with it here. So I would even maybe look towards the under possibly. That's a big number, 69, 68.5. I mean, it's way up. I think maybe the value's gone from the open at 62.5. Maybe look towards the under, lean under in this game, 69.
Well, that breakdown from both of you guys has concerned me because I'm already on that over at 66. I got that on Monday. And I could right now. Yeah, I guess possible buyback spot. Okay, let's keep rolling. Next up, Big Ten affair here. Number 10 ranked Indiana Hoosiers, their highest ranking since 1969 at Michigan State Spartans. Indiana 3-0 to start the year. Michigan 1-2. Indiana coming off third straight win, 38-21 win over Michigan. Indiana ranks 12th in the Big Ten in offensive yards per game at 339.3, but that is not stopping them because of their red zone. Man, 16 times they've been in the red zone this season, 12 touchdowns. Come on, 12 touchdowns and 16 trips. Penix throwing 6 red zone touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Michigan State coming off an embarrassing 49-7 loss at Iowa. Rocky Lombardi throwing 5 interceptions through 3 games this year. A Big Ten action here. Let's go to John Ryan here. I know you love Big Ten action. What do you think here, Indiana, Michigan State?
Well, at the beginning of the year, I think this game probably would have been lined around Michigan State being favored by a touchdown. But Indiana has been the Cinderella story of the Big Ten for sure. And the way they're playing and their head coach is one of the master motivators in the game. And, I'm confident that you don't have to worry about a letdown here in this situation. They're on a roll, and they do have a tremendous motivator to keep them focused and alert in this game. Michigan State is a hard team to understand because one week they go into the big house and knock off Michigan. Prior to that, they lost to Rutgers. Rutgers has improved, but they're not a bowl team yet. So Michigan State on any given day, we just don't know which Jekyll or Hyde we're really going to get. I would lean towards Indiana in this game to keep things rolling. If I remember right, Jimmy, you can confirm this for me. The betting flows, at least early on in the week, were heavily on Michigan State. And I know from that experience, that's the public saying that Indiana is just not going to keep doing this. And, I've been around doing this for 26 years, and I can tell you when you start thinking that way, that's when that team just keeps rolling. So I would be very leery to bet Michigan State in this position. I would be more on Indiana.
That is flipped, by the way, too. Indiana now taking 65% of the cash. So that makes sense after that breakdown. We got Walter Trotter got Indiana at -7. This opened up at Bet365. Again, we talk about the licensed books in America. And Indiana opened at -9 at Bet365. Now it's 7.5. I see 7.5s across the board. Big Ragoo, Big Ten action, Indiana, Michigan State. Take it away, my man.
Yeah, like John says, Indiana definitely a Cinderella team. I took them like the first game of the season on a going away pick that I had, and it's a nice team. Michigan State, on the other hand, they're a hot mess. Their biggest issues is keeping track of the football. That seems to bite them in the foot all the time. They did play up when they played Michigan, but when you play these rival games early in the season, it doesn't matter when, but just so happened it came early. You could throw out all the stats on those rival games for the most part, but we'll see if they get back on track. This is going to be the telltale sign for Michigan State, but they're young. They have a lot of issues. Indiana they're on the fast track right now, and I think they're flying high with confidence. And it might be maybe a little bit too much on the number. I got my good friend out in Vegas. He bet it early yesterday. I told him I think he's on the right side with Indiana, but I think he's laying like 7. I don't know. There's some 7.5s now, down from 9. That's my only worry. Some of the markets coming back the other way. I would probably lean Indiana just because of the momentum they have going. I know we're betting against the number, but Michigan State, there's too many question marks. It's a pass for me as far as the play goes, but there's a lot of question marks on Michigan State. We know what Indiana's doing right now, so it's either Indiana or pass for me.
Indiana or pass. All right, we are rocking and rolling here. I love the pace. We move on to the next spot we have. We're just going down the rotation numbers, so every game will be touched on. Is Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders at number 16th ranked Marshall Thundering Herd. Middle Tennessee 2-5, 2-3 in Conference USA. Marshall 6-0, 3-0 in Conference USA. We are dealing with Marshall opening up as 23.5-point favorites. That has moved to 24. This total opened up 54, now at 55.5. Middle Tennessee being off for 2 weeks. They were last seen in their second win in 3 games, 40-34, double overtime win at Rice. Junior quarterback Asher O'Hara leads the Conference USA in passing yards, 11 TDs as well, but 8 interceptions. He's also rushed 139 times for 476 yards. Only 3 players in the country have rushed for more than 139 times. Marshall coming off 51-10 beatdown of Massachusetts. Marshall is allowing just 9.5 points per game, and freshman quarterback Grant Wells just doesn't make mistakes. Out there. Let's go over to our man, Big Ragoo, little Conference USA battle, Middle Tennessee, Marshall.
Marshall's winning the game by extreme margin, 20-plus points a game. Middle Tennessee losing by, double digits every game, having some issues. Marshall's a strong football team without a doubt. Are they 24 points strong? I'm not going to lay it in this spot, but I just think Middle Tennessee's got too many issues. They're trying to establish the run first. They're not very well equipped offensively to move the ball down the field through the air. So they have some issues, gaining yardage, putting the ball up in the air, and also putting points on the board. So they got to take care of the football. I mean, they are averaging about 24 points a game, but Marshall's defense is something special, and I think they're going to be up against it here. It's a pass for me either way. I'm not going to let it's either Marshall or pass, but I can't see taking the 23 or laying the 23 with Marshall here, and I'm not definitely going to take 23 with Middle Tennessee State.
Reclaim James says Middle Tennessee is hot trash. Let's go over to our guy John Ryan. What do you think of this spot here in Conference USA?
Well, I think first of all, there's going to be a lot of emotion in this game because of an unfortunate event that occurred 50 years ago. The players will be wearing 75 on their helmets, which represents the airplane crash 50 years ago where 75 Marshall University players, coaches, staff, unfortunately, died. So I think with the emotion coming with Marshall and 7-0 for the season, you definitely don't take the dog here and try to be outsmarting the marketplace. I usually, and I learned this over many years, is that when there's an emotion involved in a game such as this one, it's sometimes better just not to bet it at all, because that emotion sometimes can get, these guys are 18 to 22 years old, and I know from when I was that age, you can get overhyped and you waste all your energy in warm up and also in the locker room, and you come time and the bell goes off and you're just spent. I'm not saying that's going to happen today, but that's a concern of mine from previous years. But I do think Marshall will roll in this game, and they may cover by 20. So what I'm trying to say is you bet the favorite here if you like Marshall, and if you like the dog, I think I would back away from it.
DJ Bigg Boss says John's got me thinking Marshall first half. Let's take a look at that line here right now. Marshall first half, it's minus 14 or 13.5.
That might be a good bet.
Yep, I like that. I like that idea a lot. That's a great observation.
All right.
Yeah, the motivational factor might kick in early in that game too.
DJ Bigg Boss listening. As the legend Lodels Loshak has taught us, great work. Okay, we're going to keep rolling here. We move on. Let me go back to full game. We move on to Army Black Knights at Tulane Green Wave. Army 6-1, Tulane 4-4. Tulane opens up as 5.5-point favorites. It's all the way down to 3 at Bet365 and 2.5 at the leading indicator books. As Ron Crawford mentioned, Ron Crawford, the great capper on our Monday show, he gave us Army at plus 5.5. Army hasn't played in 2 weeks. They were last seen October 24th in the 49-3 beatdown of Mercer. They allowed just 11.7 points per game. They put up 308.1 yards per game on the ground while passing for just 56.3. Tulane coming off their second straight win, 38-21 East Carolina. So the reason why I didn't move on Army, and now I realize with the market move so heavily in Army's favor that it was a mistake, but it was this stat here. It was a green wave have held opposing teams to 128 yards per game, just 3.1 yards per carry, and that's all Army does. But that maybe, well, let's hear what the experts have to say. John, Ryan, we'll start with you. Army, Tulane.
Well, the first thing, you put me down for a best bet on Army, and you summed it up. Tulane has done very well against the ground attack, but they haven't faced a ground attack like this one to date. And I don't think they're going to be successful and contain Army to 128 yards, which is their season average. I think it's going to be double that. There's a machine. I'm sorry, I'll get to the machine learning, but there's a betting system that's hit 67% winners over the last 10 years. The requirements are to bet on road teams that are averaging a minimum of 235 rushing yards per game, are coming off a game where they gained at least 285 rushing yards, and are now facing an opponent that appears to be a solid defensive unit, allowing 125 to 150 rushing yards per game on the season. So that is one of those ones that I like a lot because it's contrarian. You know, you're going against a defense that has been so successful against the run, but if you look at the matchups, they haven't faced an offensive ground attack like this one. Army's playing with a lot of confidence. Yes, they're young, but confidence I always will take over youth. In the machine learning area here, calls for Army to gain at least 250 in this matchup. And in games where Army has rushed for 250 or more yards on 60 or more attempts and scored 27 or more points, they've earned a 27-10 straight up record, 25-12-1 against the spread for 69% winning bets over the last 10 years. So I'm on Army with confidence.
Army with confidence. Big Ragoo, what do you think of that, my man?
I think we got a scenario of a pace tempo here. Tulane running almost 80 plays a game. Army just under 60. So we know we're going to get with Army. I know Willie Fritz is well familiar with Army's system, running the option himself a time or two. So I think we're going to get a little bit of tempo coming out of Tulane. How that plays in the Army's scheme of things on the defensive side remains to be seen. We know the numbers dropped from like 4 to 2.5 threes. I think the numbers set good here because of that fact. But I tend to lean with Tulane at home here. I just think maybe a little. I'm not gonna say better talent, but maybe on the coaching side of things, the familiarity, playing at home, and the tempo, it might have a toll on Army in the long term. So I look for a lower scoring game, but I think Tulane probably wins by at least a touchdown here.
Both sides of the coin. Army, Black Knights, best bet material for John, Ryan, and Tulane by probably a touchdown, says our Big Roo. Very exciting. Okay, let's keep rolling. Next up, we got Penn State Nittany Lions at Nebraska Cornhuskers. Both teams starving for a victory. Penn State opening up as 3-point favorites. A couple books have moved it to 2.5. You can get it at -105 or plus money now instead of the -110 that it opened up with. This total is sitting at 56.5, up from 55. Penn State coming off their third straight loss, start the season 35-19 at Maryland, with no Journey Brown on offense, no Michael Parsons on defense. This team has been a major disappointment. Nebraska coming off its second straight loss to start the season 21-13 at Northwestern. Does Adrian Martinez get another start? He's not looked good. Has yet to throw a TD pass. You got freshman Luke McCaffrey waiting in the wings. How many more chances does Martinez get is the question. Little Big Ten action. Big Ragoo, Penn State, Nebraska. What do you think here?
Yeah, but you talk about a team that's kind of fallen off the face of the earth with Penn State, with what they got going. And Nebraska's had their struggles here. I don't know, just with the scenario with the quarterback with Nebraska, Martinez has, like you said, has not looked good. They both have been, getting their asses kicked on both sides of the ball. And this game here is a stay-away game because I really tell you the truth, I don't know which way to even begin to try to break this game down as far as, trying to find some positives on both sides. I mean, if anything, They both seem to run about 70 plays per game, so you're going to get a little bit of pace there. Maybe look to the total, possibly. I mean, who knows? Their average, but Nebraska's been averaging 15 points a game. Penn State 26. So I don't know. This is definitely when I first looked at it, I tried to look at an angle to kind of break the game down, but I couldn't come up with one. So maybe John could elaborate on it for me.
Can John elaborate? This is a tricky spot with these two underachievers.
This is one of those situations where what kind of odds would you have gotten if you would have said Penn State will be 0-3 going into Lincoln, Nebraska? It would have been astronomical. So it's hard to believe that Penn State is 0-3 right now. Parsons was a huge loss on defense, even bigger than anybody ever thought it would be. Journey Brown is a much bigger loss than anybody thought it was going to be. And at the end of the day, though, you don't make excuses in the Big Ten. Everybody has injuries. People lose players. We're into COVID. But I think the best thing for Penn State right now is to get out on the road and get away from that huge 111,000 empty stadium. That when you think about it, that has to be unbelievably difficult to play with nobody in there except for 1,500 people, maybe family and friends. I think that's part of the problem. Road teams this year, as we've talked about, have had a tremendous advantage that they never enjoyed before. There's no incredible amount of noise on third down and threes. There's no need to practice silent snap counts during the week. And it allows the defense, even in the NFL, we've seen it, where they can just change the play at the line of scrimmage and they execute it. So I think getting away from Happy Valley is going to be good for Penn State today. And my thinking is this. I probably will take Penn State for a little bit of money just to say I was on the game, which I know violates every discipline I've ever preached. All right, so I make that caveat. But I do think if Penn State wins, it's going to be ugly. Like it's going to be James Franklin's foot was up everybody's rear end during the entire week, with speeches like, you're representing Penn State, bucko. You guys are playing like a bunch of trash animals. And it's about time you get out in the field. And I'm sure there was other words used than the ones I just did. If that's the case, then I can see Penn State just playing the way we thought they could and winning, something ridiculous, 55-21. So I would be a light lean on the money line with Penn State, especially now that it's 2.5.
Very interesting. Prince of the City in Vegas right now, and you know how he loves fading all teams from Pennsylvania, and Penn State fits that right there. He's sleeping, resting easy in Vegas right now. Let's move on to, first off, our guy, OG Lowbagger, Ulysses Hayes, rolling with us, has his cousin Kurt, first time listening. Respect, Kurt. If you're family with Ulysses, you're family with us. Thank you for joining us. We move on, and we don't need to speak long about this spot here. Western Carolina Catamounts sitting as 36.5-point dogs. That was 34.5 last night, although it wasn't available at my book. It was only available at a couple books. I heard it did open up at 32.5 at some spots, but again, it wasn't available where I could bet it. FCS Western Carolina opens the season under very difficult circumstances here. They are 0-57 in their history against FBS opponents. Catamounts only averaged 18.1 points and 325 yards of offense last year. Redshirt junior Will Jones takes over at quarterback. Western Carolina's defense was terrible last year. They allowed 258.4 rushing yards per game. That's the third worst average in the FCS. Liberty is going to be able to take advantage of that. Hugh Freeze has Liberty rolling in his second season as coach, going for their 10th straight home win. Liberty fresh off a giant 38-35 win at Virginia Tech. And Auburn transfer Malik Willis has been excellent this year, 12 touchdowns, 1 interception. Is there any move to make here, John, with this a huge favorite in Liberty?
Well, I think even though we've had a lot of cancellations related to COVID, there's better opportunities than this game. And as you mentioned, it's Western Carolina's first game of the year. They've never defeated an FBS team. I think you just pass. I'll leave it at that.
Understandable. We got lots of great action ahead of us here on this show. Ragoo, any move to make here with number 22 ranked Liberty?
It's a pass.
A pass. Western Carolina Catamounts Liberty Flames. Okay, and then we have a 1 p.m. game that's next up. It's the lone 1 p.m. game on the docket. Illinois Rutgers. Rutgers opening up at -5.5 at Bet365. Now sitting at -6. This total opening at 52. Now at 51. And I originally had this set up as a 12 p.m. game, so let me just find my notes on it. Here we go. The Fighting Illinois, 0-3 in the Big Ten at the Scarlet Knights, 1-2 in the Big Ten. Illinois coming off an ugly 41-14 loss at home to Minnesota. We saw just how bad Minnesota is last night, and those of you who watched the Monday show, we made a move on the Minnesota team total under 27.5. That was glorious. For Illinois, though, sophomore Corin Taylor started last week versus Minnesota because Brandon Peters and Isaiah Williams, 2 other quarterbacks, haven't been cleared to return from COVID-19 yet. Taylor went 6 for 17, 106 yards and a touchdown. They're a mess. Their defense ranks last in the Big Ten, allowing 39 points per game. They allow a 60% conversion rate on third down. Rutgers coming in off 49-27 loss at Ohio State, saw them down 35-3 at the half. Rutgers giving up 37.7 points per game, and they actually own the conference's second best rushing defense. 120.7 yards per a game. Let's start with John Ryan here. Illinois, Rutgers.
What I saw in the betting flows this morning, the 20 books that I track, is a irrational exuberance on Rutgers. Granted, we're excited about Rutgers' a change. Asciano's back as head coach. They're looking better than they certainly have in the last 3 years, but they have a long way to go. Illinois is looking very, very bad. And this is where we get these contrarian opportunities that when I mention them, people's eyes pop out of their head. But I think this is a game that you can trust Illinois. I think Illinois will actually win the game as long as everything I say comes out right. It's backed by a betting system that's 38-10 for 78% over the last 10 seasons. And you bet on underdogs of 3.5 to 9 points that are getting outscored by 17 or more points per game and have allowed a whopping 31 or more points in 3 consecutive games. So if I didn't tell you the record and I gave you the requirements, you would think that you were betting on the other team. Meaning that, oh my God, they're getting killed. 17-point differential, and the defense sucks, and they've given up 31 or more points in 3 consecutive games. Well, as we see by the history, this is where you get these seemingly non-logical opportunities. And this is a game where I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Illinois win this. Oh, by the way, when was the last time Rutgers was a home favorite in conference games?
Oh, man.
In other words, not playing against Massachusetts or somebody like that.
Oh, man. God.
Anybody in the chat room say anything?
It's got to be 15 plus years.
Well, it was 2014, and against Indiana, they were an 8-point favorite and won 45-23. So when these things happen and go that long, that's also a red flag too to consider. So I'm on Illinois.
Illinois, what an interesting take here. One I wasn't expecting. Big Ragoo, what do you think? Illinois, Rutgers.
I always have a saying, when 2 shitty teams play each other, take the points. But I think maybe a little too quick for Rutgers to kind of, come back, even though they looked impressive the first game of the season. But, Michigan State had a lot to do with that. But the numbers, Illinois is ugly too. So either way, you're going to get a little more pace out of Rutgers. I think passing wise, I think Illinois has a better run game here. I think defensively, I would say they're probably on par with one another as far as red zone opportunities. They're actually Rutgers. I lean Rutgers on the red zone side. Here's where Rutgers is really, really bad. If Illinois can get in the red zone, they're going to score probably like 70% of the time, at least, because Rutgers they're not very good in the red zone, so they have some issues there. And I do give them a little advantage on the rushing game too. Pass wise, I lean Rutgers a little bit, but I'm with John. I would say take Illinois maybe as a money line dog, a little sprinkle, but I would lean that way. I'm not going to get to the winner with it, but I definitely would lean Illinois in this spot.
Wow, very, very interesting game. Let's move on to a 2 p.m. spot here. The lone 2 p.m. spot, South Alabama Jaguars, 3-4, 2-2 in the Sun Belt. At number 25th ranked Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Louisiana opening up at minus 14 at bet 365. That's up to 14.5. Other books have moved it down to 14. This total is sitting at 53.5 or 54. I got in on the under 54 on Monday. Noli Knows gave that as the best bet on the under 54.5. South Alabama coming off their second straight loss, 23-6 at Coastal Carolina. They have a balanced offense and they're stronger than it looks defense. And I thought they played fine against a very tough Coastal Carolina team. Raging Cajuns coming off their third straight win, 27-20 over Arkansas State. They have a multifaceted offense, averaging 194 rushing yards per game, 232 passing yards a game. And the issue here, and the reason why I came close to adding South Alabama last night, but wanted to talk it out, was only one of Louisiana wins this year have come by 14 plus. And that was week 1 versus Iowa State, 31-14. They seem to play down to the level of competition. And South Alabama, much better than they were last year, and still have a lot to play for, even though they're 3-4, they're 2-2 in the Sun Belt. Let's start with our big Ragoo. Anything here for you, South Alabama, Louisiana?
Yeah, I lean South Alabama. I agree with you. I think 14 is too many in this spot. I think South Alabama, they're a pretty efficient football team overall. You know, in the red zone, they have a pretty good balanced attack. I don't think Lafayette's been beating a whole lot of teams by margin. You know, they've been winning on average. When they win is like 6-7 points a game. So I think that's a quality program in South Alabama. You know, they're kind of on par with one another when it comes to, you know, level of talent. So I think double digits, strong double digits. You know, 14 is too many in spot. I think if Alabama, I don't think Alabama's going to win the game, but I don't see Louisiana covering by more than 2 touchdowns. Maybe 10 points at the top end. Maybe a touchdown to 10 points at the most.
Sounds like a spot that should be attacked. John Ryan, South Alabama, Louisiana Raging Cajuns.
Yeah, I agree with Big Ragoo here. South Alabama's to play. If you take a look at their season-to-date stats, they're not reflective of how that defense is playing. Let's not forget, they held Coastal Carolina to season lows last week in scoring and some of the other metrics. And that's quite impressive. And when you read about the tone of the press conferences that have occurred over the last, say, 3 weeks, it's a team that is building confidence. And even though their record is what it is, they're much, much better than that. And any college team playing with confidence is dangerous, especially as a double-digit dog. So, you know, I would be very, very leery if I was playing South Alabama right now, because they're bringing max potential right now, and I think they'll cover the spread here and possibly keep the game within 7 points.
Maybe alternative spread possibility there. That game pops off at 2 o'clock. We move on to 2:30. We got 2 games going off at 2:30. We're going to start with Fresno State Bulldogs. Again, we're just going down the rotation orders, so very easy to follow along. Fresno State Bulldogs 2-1 in the Mountain West. At Utah State Aggies 0-3 in the Mountain West. 2:30 spot. Fresno State opening up as 12.5-point favorites, are now 10-point favorites on the road. After opening the season with 34-19 loss at home to Hawaii, Bulldogs have beaten Colorado State 38-17 and UNLV 40-27. Utah State opened up their season with 3 losses. They're scoring just 9.7 points per game. Coming off a 34-9 loss at Nevada, they've lost by an average of 28.3 points per game. Utah State quarterback Jason Shelley is unable to consistently move the ball. After last week's loss, Utah State fired head coach Gary Anderson. Senior running back Ronnie Rivers run for 6 touchdowns, caught for 2. And all right, sorry, I'm back at Fresno State stats there. My fault. Sorry, I jumped around to Utah State, Fresno State. My fault. Fresno State has been unable to stop the run, allowing 238 rushing yards per game. But can Utah State take advantage of that? And I don't know. I know Utah State is bad. I don't know what to do with this spot. Little Mountain West action. Big Boss, our man Big Boss in the chat, not with us here on this show, and he Mountain West where he does it best. Without him, Big Ragoo, can we move on this game at all? Fresno State, Utah State?
Yeah, this has got to be a spot for Fresno or pass, because, like you said, Utah State is a hot mess. Firing a coach, they're losing by better than 4 touchdowns a game the last 3 games. At home, they're even worse, if that's even possible. So But I know Fresno is they're probably not the powerhouse team, but I see this as a good double up spot, maybe like a 34-17 type final, somewhere in that range. But I don't know. I think they get the cover here. I'm a little leery. The only thing that holds me back is the run game, like you brought up. But maybe with the firing of the coach, the team rallies and put something on the field. But I can't see any arrows pointing towards Utah State in this spot. It's Fresno or pass for me.
This game makes me extremely uncomfortable. I think it's going to end up being a pass for me as well. John Ryan, anything here in the Mountain West?
Yeah, I think you're both right. I think it's a pass here. If you were going to bet it, it's got to be Fresno State, Utah State. Coaching changes, I get that whole thing, but with all due respect to their personnel, to have a situation like that, you have to have some depth and you have to have some talent in the depth. And Utah State, unfortunately, doesn't have that. So I don't think a coaching change alone is going to make a difference there. Fresno State is 45-10 against the number over the last 10 seasons when they've outgained their opponent by 2 or more yards per play. I think that's very likely to happen in this game. So I'm going to stand aside from the game. But if you like Fresno State, I think you're on the right side.
Yeah, I feels like it's just people or cappers or money believing in the coaching change angle. And I think you said it right there. This might be a spot to go against that coaching change angle. I'm just going to stay away from it. But the more we talk about it, the more I actually am wanting to go against this market move. Let's just see where the money is in this spot quickly. I know we've got to keep moving forward, but see where I can get it. Where the hell is it? I'll find it here in a second. Here we go. Yeah, 80% of the cash on Fresno State. That's gone. I'm just going to stay away. That's what I'm going to do. The next 2:30 game, 2:30 Eastern, Georgia State Panthers, 2-3 in the Sun Belt. Again, App State Mountaineers, 5-1, 3-0 in the Sun Belt. App State opening up as minus 16-point favorites at Bet365, and they're always late for their opening lines. And I get that. It's now 17.5, but the indicator books have moved it all to 18. After an embarrassing 51-0 loss at home to Coastal Carolina, Georgia State bounced back to defeat Louisiana Monroe 52-34. They put up 42 points in the first half. Redshirt freshman quarterback Cornelius Brown, the fourth, 20-32, 241 yards, 3 touchdowns. Panthers' pass defense is weak. They're allowing 348.7 yards per game through the air, and App State can't take advantage of that. And that made me think about moving on the dog, but clearly the market's still backing App State. App State's only averaging 189.8 yards per game. That's 97th in the nation. They've won 4 straight, all by double digits, most recently winning at Texas State 38-17. But this is a very possible look-ahead spot with Coastal Carolina coming in next week, and that's a huge game. So even though I don't know, I'll let the experts talk about it. Why don't we start with John Ryan, Sun Belt action, Georgia State, App State.
Well, I did want to mention, this is probably the right time to mention, I have an article on odds.com where it's using the 28-point pivot level that I talk about all the time. So I take the line in this game with the line and the total implies basically a 40-23 final score Appalachian State win. Okay, so by the line and by the public's betting behavior and expectations, it's very likely Appalachian State's going to score more than 28 points. So Appalachian State, when they score 28 or more points, let's scroll down here and find it. They are 36-12 over the last 5 seasons when scoring 28 or more points. That by itself. They're 25-10 against the number when they've outgained the opponent by 2 or more yards per play, which my machine learning underscores has a high probability of occurring. So I don't think there's going to be any look ahead here. And honestly, I think Appalachian State just rolls and covers easily.
Wow.
Very interesting. That will likely keep me off. I'm going to pop our man John Ryan's article here into the chat. Anybody wants to take a look at it right there, just click on it. There is John Ryan's article on odds.com. Big Ragoo, Georgia State Panthers, App State Mountaineers.
Yeah, App State has had some success against his team over the past few years. I think the last 4 times they played, I might be mistaken, but what I've read up on it, they've won by like 4 touchdowns when they've matched up with Georgia State. Now, they have had a little bit of struggles in the red zone of late, when they get down there. But I think you're going to see a lot of plays, a lot of pace in this game. I would probably look to the over in this game, believe it or not, even though 63 is a decent number. And I know I'm going to be a little bit contrarian here. I mean, 100% of the money looks like it's coming up on App State, so there's not a lot of backing for the Georgia State squad here. But I just think App State, I wouldn't call it a look at, even though it is a great point. They do have Coastal Carolina on deck. I probably would look towards the over versus laying the points here. I think Georgia State's going to get their points. I really do. Like John said, I had like maybe like a 38 to 20 something. Like I have App State winning by like 10 to 12 points. So they might come up a little short here, I think. Even though they have had success against the squad over the years, by big double-digit margins. But I just think Georgia State's going to be able to score some points here. They're going to get some yardage. They're going to score some points. And whether I don't think you're going to see an overtime game, but you're going to see probably App State win probably by 10 to 12, 10 to 13 points, somewhere in that range. I don't think they're going to win by 3 touchdowns. And you're going to need that with 18 points.
Oh, that's got me back thinking. I had pretty much cut it off my potential wager list, and now it's back on. Okay.
Sorry, Jimmy.
It's all good. No, it's fun. All right, let's move on to 3 p.m. action. We don't need to spend a lot of time on these smaller schools. It's up to you guys. UTEP Miners, Conference USA at UTSA Roadrunners. UTEP hasn't played in the last 2 weeks due to COVID issues, coming off their second straight loss, 38-28 at Charlotte. Quarterback Gavin Hardison throwing 4 TDs and 5 interceptions. 2 of their 3 wins have come against FCS opponents. UTSA is coming off 24-3 loss to Florida Atlantic. Lowell Narcisse was off to a strong start before an ankle injury ended his season. His replacement, junior Frank Harris, has looked bad. 12 of 26 for 109 yards, no TDs, and lost to Florida Atlantic. UTSA did play BYU tough on the road this year, losing just 27-20 earlier in the season. But now they have Frank Harris, and he just looks bad. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He looks bad. UTSA opening up as 6-point favorites, now 6.5, bet 365. Leading indicator books have moved it to 7. John Ryan, anything for you here, UTEP, UTSA?
I studied this game, but I don't see any opportunity, Jimmy. I really don't.
Yeah, the
one thing I can say, if you like UTEP, their defensive front isn't that bad in this matchup, and they probably can control the line of scrimmage against UTSA. So I can tell you this, that UTSA is 2-8 the last 3 years when they've gained 4 or fewer yards per rush. 5-14 the last 10 seasons. So that is a situation I was looking at with the defensive line of UTEP, playing well against this type of opponent. But it's a reach for me to even think about putting a bet on just based on that.
It's the COVID issues that would keep me off of this. That's probably going to keep me off of this unless Ragoo can push me in any direction. Anything for you here, UTEP, UTSA?
These are 2 teams that struggle on third downs. They struggle to put points on the board. I mean, they yield points, but they struggle to put points up. So there's margin both ways there. I'm off of this game totally. I don't have any opinion on it.
We'll move on to a big one. Notre Dame, Boston College, Holy War. Notre Dame opening up 12.5. I bet 365. Now 11.5. This total has gone the opposite direction from where I wanted it to go. John and I moved on the under earlier in the week, and this has gone over. And Connor wanted the Eagles, and he was going to wait to see if he could get a better number. That hasn't happened. John, we talked about maybe moving on the team total under. That's still a possibility for me. Notre Dame coming off a giant 47-40 double overtime win at home over Clemson. In 1993, Notre Dame took down a number 1 team, Florida State, and lost the following week against Boston College. Ian Book looked excellent against Clemson, 310 yards and a touchdown while adding 64 yards on the ground, 14 carries. Irish limited the Tigers to just 34 rushing yards, which is very impressive. Boston College coming off squeaking by Syracuse on the road 16-13. 3 of the Eagles' wins have come by 3 or fewer, while 2 of their 3 losses have been by 6 or fewer. And Jerkovich leads the ACC and ranks 6th in the FBS with 2,083 passing yards, 21.5 completions per game, is 1 behind Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Very, very exciting game. Big Ragoo, let's start with you. Notre Dame, Boston College.
Seems like a ton of money's coming in on Boston College here in this spot, and probably for good reason. Boston College, they are playing solid on the defensive side of the ball, and these teams know each other well. There's always been battles down the spots as far as Notre Dame trying to get to a national championship prominence. They're playing good football at the same time. I think the number's too big here. I see Notre Dame probably winning by a touchdown, but not more than that. Maybe a field goal to a touchdown. I think the linesman got it wrong here. Boston College taking 2-to-1 ratio on the money. I just think it's a good spot for them. Now who does Notre Dame have on deck next week? I didn't look at that portion.
Let's see. They have Notre Dame plays at North Carolina.
At North Carolina. Okay, so another conference there. Yeah, I just think it's too many points here for Notre Dame to get to that number. I think they're. I'm not going to say they're mirror teams, but Jerkovich is having a nice season. They're both getting about 8 yards per pass. Rushing wise, Notre Dame, they got the better running game here, but I just think I think the number is too big, in this spot for especially going on the road playing at BC. So, and then 50. I was kind of looking towards that number too. I was thinking maybe leaning over the total of the 51 points here. That might be a good look too.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about my under. Very concerned. John Ryan, what do you think about that under now? Are you still interested in the Boston College team total under? How are you handling this?
I'm interested in both for the same reasons we outlined on Monday. The North Carolina game with Notre Dame is 2 weeks. It's on Black Friday, the 27th. I just wanted to point that out, that it's not next week, as I incorrectly stated. So that gives Notre Dame 2 weeks to prepare for that huge game, and it makes it easier for Kelly and his coaching staff to motivate his players to not take this game lightly, because then we have 2 weeks off. So I don't see any letdown here. I might add too that Florida State in 1993 went on to win the national championship. So I do see Clemson, as long as Trevor Lawrence is under center, in an ACC championship game against Notre Dame. I see that already circled on my calendar, and I would be all over the Clemson Tigers playing with revenge. They pretty much should have won that game. For whatever reason, they've been playing slow the first half, and then all of a sudden that defense has clamped down on the back-to-back opponents that they played against, and I think the other one was BC. So in this game, to refocus here a little bit, the under is the play. You don't want to give an underdog any hope of upset, especially with the history of these two schools. So I think Notre Dame will definitely play slower than usual and look to not make mistakes, because that's the only way that they can lose this game. They can only lose it by making mistakes and giving BC, that hope in the third and fourth quarter that they're close and can pull it off. So I see Notre Dame winning this comfortably, but I like the under, and I also like under BC's game total.
And that's 19.5 at Bet365 right now. Boston College team total 19.5. And also the Irish to roll for John Ryan. We move on to Texas State at Georgia Southern. Little Sun Belt, Fun Belt action. Texas State 1-8, 1-4 in the Sun Belt. Georgia Southern 5-2, 3-2 in the Sun Belt. Georgia Southern opening up as 10-point favorites. That's moved to 11. The indicator books have moved it to 11.5. Texas State saw 6 straight, with last 5 coming by double digits. Despite the straight-up losses, they are 5-4 against the spread this year. Most recently, they lost 38-17 at home to App State. Quarterback Tyler Vitt has been struggling, and Georgia Southern allows just 227 yards per game through the air. So I don't know how Texas State's going to be able to move the ball. Georgia Southern allows an average of 101 yards per game and held Troy rushing. 101 yards rushing per game, and held Troy last week to just 34 rush yards. Georgia Southern's won 4 of 5. They won last week, 2013 at Troy. Shea Wertz leads the offense and is throwing 738 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. And last week he looked bad, really bad, threw for just 85 yards. They also lost top running back J.D. King to a knee injury. He's already been ruled out. So with all that said, that's why this total's gone from 51 to 49.5, and maybe we can squeak under it. John Ryan, anything for you here in the Sun Belt, Texas State, Georgia Southern?
Not really. I would be careful just automatically taking the double-digit favorite, even though the line's coming down, because Texas State has played a much more difficult schedule than Georgia Southern to date, and it's wide enough disparity that I think that should be a big consideration if you are going to back Georgia Southern. Other than that, I don't see any opportunity whatsoever. I would like to do the under, but it's moved now, so. I don't really like it under 50, but that would be my lean.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Ragoo?
I agree with John 100% on the under. Georgia Southern, they're run. They're going to probably run like 80% of the time. More balanced attack from Texas State, but Texas State, how efficient are they going to be against that Georgia Southern defense? So it's under a pass for me. I still might get to the window. I'd give it a strong lean on the under, even though it's below 50, 49.5. I would definitely look towards the under in this spot.
Let's move over to the American. South Florida Bulls 1-6, 0-5 in the American. At Houston Cougars 2-3, 2-2 in the American. And I have a asterisk and a question mark besides South Florida. Thinking of pulling the trigger here. Houston opening up as 14-point favorites. Now 14.5. Indicator books have moved it to 15. This total opened up at 59. It's now at 57.5. USF has lost 6 straight. Most recently losing 34-33 heartbreaker at Memphis as 17-point underdogs. And I don't want that recency to play a part in this bet, and so I didn't pull the trigger just to hear your guys' input. Noah Johnson, quarterback, 20-29, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns. They've allowed at least 34 points in each of their last 4 games. Memphis put up 534 yards against them, but we know Memphis' offense is strong. Houston's lost 2 straight, coming off 38-10 setback at Cincinnati. Tune passed for just 189 yards through an interception. Houston allows 35.4 points per game. South Florida in action, so let's go to Big Ragoo. South Florida, Houston, what do you think here?
Yeah, that's a lot of points in my book to be laying with Houston as bad as they are defensively. We know South Florida is not setting the world on fire, but 2 touchdowns. I mean, they're taking most of the money, and the line hasn't moved, so that tells me some of the sharper money is coming in on South Florida. So it's either South Florida pass for me in this spot.
I think it might be a pulling trigger. As soon as you started saying that, my palm started leaking. John, South Florida, Houston Cougars.
I'm on Houston here. This is a best bet for me personally.
Oh, no. Okay.
I apologize.
There goes leaky palms.
No, we need all of a sudden.
If you said I have nothing, we could have moved on.
No, it's all good.
I think there's trends here that support Houston. They're coming off, as you said, 2 straight losses. They're also coming off 2 consecutive ATS losses. Houston's 30-13 in home games when failing to cover the spread in 2 of the last 3 games. Their defense, as you mentioned, has been terrible. However, they're 23-8-1 after allowing 37 or more points in 2 consecutive games. So again, these contrarian trends keep popping up, and especially this time of year after we've had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a normal situation. This is when the contrarian things seem to pop up. So I agree with you. Like on the surface, 14 points. What am I, nuts? I'm telling you to go bet Houston, but then when you look at it, there's some substance to not being crazy and going out there and betting the Cougars. And there's a lot of systems that back them too. I'll just read one off quick here. You're gonna bet against underdogs of 10.5 to 21 points after 6 or more consecutive straight losses and winning 25% or fewer of their games on the season. It's one of the simplest ones that I know on the planet, and it hits 66% the last 10 seasons without a losing season. So I have to put my faith and trust in that system alone.
Sounds good. No problem. Lots and lots of opportunities on the board. I will stay off. We move to Pac-12 action. USC Trojans at Arizona Wildcats. USC 1-0. Arizona opening up their slate of games here. Let's see where I am. 20 ranked USC opening up as 13.5-point favorites. They're now 14.5. This total's gone from 64 to 67.5. USC opened the season with a 28-27 win at Arizona State after being down 13 with 3 minutes left. It was very exciting. Arizona State was expected to be USC's biggest challenge for the division. Arizona's season opener against Utah was canceled when positive COVID-19 cases. Arizona quarterback Grant Gunnell looked good last year. In just 8 games, passed for 1,239 yards, 9 touchdowns, just 1 interception. Pac-12 action. Big Ragoo, anything for you here?
It's USC or pass for me. I'm not going to put a lot of stock into Arizona, trying to upstart their season, which, maybe a little bit of rust factor here. USC did look impressive coming off of that victory last week. So I'm not going to get to the window here, but it's USC or pass. I think they carry a little momentum forward, and we'll just see how Arizona opens up their season. So I'm off.
Paco Healy says, lay it. Walter Trotter says, I like USC. Haven't pulled the trigger at -14 yet. Let's move over to John Ryan, Pac-12 action. What do you think here?
I agree with all of it. I think at the end of the year, we're going to have a situation where, if I'm right about Clemson beating Notre Dame, USC will be the Pac-12 champion, undefeated. So who gets in? Undefeated USC or a one-loss Notre Dame team? I'll leave it at that.
I like it. And this total has shot up here from 64 to 67.5. We move to another Pac-12 spot. Colorado Buffaloes 1-0 at Stanford Cardinal. Colorado opening up as 6-point dogs. That's ballooned up to 9, 8.5 at 35, but 9 at the indicated books. Colorado got their season started with 48-42 win at home over UCLA. They put up 525 yards of offense. Neuer threw for 257 yards, ran for 64 more. Stanford opened their season with 35-14 loss at Oregon, and the move towards Stanford, it has to be that I guess Davis Mills is good to go. Is that what's going on? He was a late scratch last week due to COVID protocols. His status for this week is unknown. Pac-12 action, John, Colorado, Stanford, anything for you?
I like Colorado a little bit in this situation. It would be a lean, but it's one I'm going to play later this afternoon. I just think the ground attack of Colorado is going to be able to get the job done, but we need to make sure I'm looking up that player you mentioned to see what's going on with that. I don't have anything. Do you?
No, I couldn't. I was trying to see if anyone in the chat does on quarterback Davis Mills for Stanford, but you have to think if it goes from 6 to 9, some information's come out that he's good to go. But
it's probable right now. That did change.
Probable? Okay. That has to be it. That has to be it.
And that also would include Connor Weddington, wide receiver, defensive end Trey Labonte, too. So without these COVID situations, which we've never had to consider in our lives, I'd like Colorado at the lower line. So I'm going to love it if it goes up to 9.
Yeah, I agree with John.
You agree with them as 9-point dogs?
I think Colorado's going to come with an average pace, and Stanford, they're going to crawl. So if Stanford's offense doesn't put the points up and Colorado's able to get an extra score here, I think the better than the touchdown, getting the plus money is a good spot here for Colorado to get the cover. Might not win the game. I don't think they're going to win, but I think they cover. Usually when I bet teams taking points, I think they have an outside chance to win, which in the Pac-12, who really knows? But I just think the pace of the game and the question marks with Stanford and Colorado's got enough. Colorado should come up with enough pace to whether they put points on the board remains to be seen. But I think pace-wise, they could play up with Stanford and get the cover here.
Move over to Conference USA action. Southern Mississippi at Western Kentucky. Southern Mississippi 2-5, 1-2 in Conference USA. Western Kentucky 2-5, 1-2 in Conference USA. Southern Miss opened as 5-point dogs and now 8-point dogs. This total has dropped 6 points from 51 at Bet365 to 45.5. Been a tough year for Southern Miss after their head coach Jay Hobson resigned following that Week 1 loss to South Alabama. Southern Miss stopped a 2-game losing streak with 24-13 win over North Alabama. They put up 17 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Quarterback Jack Abraham missed last week due to a concussion. It's unclear if he will be available this week. Clearly by this move, he's not available. I guess. Western Kentucky, I should say, I guess I'm just saying clearly. Western Kentucky's coming off their second straight loss, 10-6 at Florida Atlantic. They average just 15.6 points per game. Year 2 under Tyson Helton has not gone well. 9-4 last year, first responder bowl victory, and now sitting at 2-5. Conference USA action, Southern Miss, Western Kentucky. Ragoo, anything for you?
Yeah, both teams, they lose by margin every time they play. It seems like better than 2 touchdowns. I know Western Kentucky has had struggle scoring. The points look pretty good here to me. I probably won't get to the window with this game, but it's either Southern Miss or pass, as bad as they are. I just think Western Kentucky is not that much better than Southern Miss in this spot. But it's a pass for me. But if I was going to lean, I would lean Southern Miss. It looks like the majority of bets are coming in on Southern Miss, but probably a little bit sharper money on Western Kentucky. So I'll be a square here and take Southern Miss on the lean.
Nas Nate says, need that best 12 p.m. bet. We will get that too, but let's just keep rolling through the card here. John Ryan, anything for you here? Southern Miss, Western Kentucky.
Nothing. You have 2 teams that against the spread. Western Kentucky had lost 6 in a row before they actually covered in last week's game. Southern Miss has covered or not covered 5 of their 6 games so far this season. So you have 2 teams where the marketplace has not been able to find a level that reflects what they are. And that's reason enough to leave it alone.
Let's leave it alone. Move over to ACC battle here. Louisville Cardinals at Virginia Cavaliers. Louisville 2-5, 1-5 in the ACC. Virginia 2-4, 2-4 in the ACC. These teams were supposed to meet last week, but positive COVID tests from Louisville stopped all that. And Louisville opens up as 3-point dogs. They're now 3.5 or 4-point dogs. Louisville was missing 8 players on defense against Virginia Tech. They're coming off their 5th loss in 6 games, 42-35 at home to Virginia Tech. 3 starters, 8 players on defense. 15 players tested positive. 7 went into quarantine. A majority of the players on the defensive side. Louisville running back Javian Hicks leads the ACC in rushing, 822 yards on the ground. Cavaliers are strong against the run. They rank 4th in the ACC, allowing 126.8 yards and 3.3 yards per carry. A year after winning the Coastal Division, Virginia already out of the ACC title game at 2-4. 2 weeks ago, they stopped the 4-game losing streak with a 44-41 win at home versus North Carolina. ACC action, Big Ragoo, let's start with you. Louisville Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Louisville, Virginia.
These are 2 different style teams as far as offense, defense, both ways. One team yields, one team, Louisville's is terrible at stopping anybody. UVA is not real prolific, but they have a good defense. So you got 2 contrasting styles here. The question marks with the COVID. I think the number is a little strong here as far as the points go. I know it opened at 64, it's climbed to 67. I think Virginia's it has enough talent on the defensive side to kind of keep Louisville in check with all their question marks. So it's going to be an under or pass for me here.
Under or pass for Ragoo. That total's open at 63 and I've gone up to 66 or even 67. John Ryan, anything for you here? Louisville, Virginia.
Well, I would lean to the under. I can give you one coaching trend that I like. Mendenhall is 12-3 under in home games when he's facing excellent offensive teams, averaging 6.3 yards per play or more. In all games he's coached in his career. So that, it's a contrarian again. And as I said many times, I don't have to say it again, this is the time of year where I think the contrarian trends really pay off.
I like that look. I like that look quite a bit. All right, we're going to move on to the 4 p.m. games. We're moving through the slate nicely. John and Ragoo, please prepare a best bet for the 12 o'clock slate, as well as a best bet on the rest of the games. 4 p.m., Hawaii at San Diego State. Hawaii 2-1 the Mountain West. San Diego State 2-1 Mountain West. Noli moved on this under at 51.5. By the time I went to bed it, which was about 6 or 8 hours after the show, I got 52.5. Right now, it's back to 51 or 51.5. San Diego State opening up as 9.5-point favorites. They're now 10-point favorites. Start with Hawaii coming off tight 39-33 win at home over New Mexico as 14-point favorites. Cordero completing 64% of his passes, throwing for 749 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. San Diego State coming off that surprise 28-17 loss at home to San Jose State as 9.5-point favorites. They allow just 233 yards per game. They average 265 yards rushing per game. That's number 7 in FBS. Feels like a bounce back spot for San Diego State where they smash here, especially Hawaii playing much earlier than they're used to. Let's go with John Ryan, Mountain West, Hawaii, San Diego State. Does San Diego State bounce back here?
I think they do. I'm going to use the 28-point example again. This line implies a San Diego State victory of 31-20. So if you like San Diego State, you have to like the fact and the probability they're going to score more than 28. And in past games that they have scored more than 28, they're 99-45 against the number for roughly 68%, 69% last 10 years. And then, of course, Hawaii is 8-16 the last 3 years and 70-140 for 33% winners when they have allowed 28 or more points. So San Diego State, I think, is the pick.
I think so too. I think this is a bounce back spot for them. Ragoo, anything to add here? Hawaii, San Diego State.
I like the. If it was on the island, that'd be a different thing. But San Diego State is taking. Hawaii's taking most of the money on the plays. Like 9 out of 10 plays are coming in Hawaii, but the line hasn't moved. So that tells me the sharps are on San Diego State. Just on that look alone, with the double digit and the bounce back spot, I would lean San Diego State here.
I think I won't just lean. I think I'll get to the window there. Let's move on to the nenext 4 p.m. game, Baylor, Texas Tech. Baylor coming off their 4th straight loss, 38-31 at Iowa State. They covered 14-point dogs, 1-4, 1-4 in the Big 12. Texas Tech 2-5, 1-5 in the Big 12. And where are we here? There we go. Texas Tech opening up as 1.5-point favorites now. Baylor 1.5-point favorites. This total has dropped from 59 to 54. Baylor quarterback Charlie Brewer, 22 of 33, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Texas Tech coming off their 2nd straight loss, 34-18 at TCU. Red Raiders are allowing 40.1 points per game this season. Let's start with John Ryan, Baylor, Texas Tech.
Well, this is a game that implies 28-27 and implies either team is going to have the 28. So I really don't have anything really concrete to say in this game, believe it or not. It's in the Big 12 and a conference I like a lot. I am a little bit confused from my power ratings of why Texas Tech is actually now – they're actually a 1-point underdog now, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
you know, I have Texas Tech as a home dog of 4.5. So, you know, there's value from that, but you know what I think of value. Value means that you're buying a piece of trash that's not fairly priced and worth it. You know, undervalued is always a relative term. So I'm going to pass on this game.
Big Ragoo, anything for you, Baylor, Texas Tech?
Yeah, I missed my opportunity. I like the under. I had it capped out at 56. So that's gone, even though, you know, from the opening number was in 60 points, right? So I missed my betting opportunity. I was strictly on the under here, and now it's gone. So sleep, you lose.
We're going to move on to late game action. This is a 6:30 p.m. start here in Nevada, New Mexico, and we have a Northwestern Purdue still there on the. I thought that was moved to 7:30. We'll get to that spot shortly. Let's go to Nevada, New Mexico. Nevada coming off 3rd straight win to start the season, 34-9 over Utah State Aggies. This Nevada opening up as 13.5-point favorites. That's shot all the way up to 17. This total opened up at 61, now 61.5. New Mexico's lost back-to-back road games to start the season, 38-31 in San Jose State, 39-33 last week at Hawaii. Tuioti, their quarterback, will miss Saturday's game against Nevada because he's in concussion protocol. That obviously is the reason for the big market move. Sophomore Trey Hall will get the start. He was 2 of 6 for 39 yards with an interception after replacing Tuioti against the Rainbow Warriors. Mountain West, Ragoo, Nevada, New Mexico, anything for you?
Yeah, missed the best of the number here. Another one I want to kick myself for, you know, getting off of that. I had Nevada as a lean early in the week, but now it's climbed to 17. They're definitely going to throw the ball all over New Mexico here. I don't want to be on the short side of the stick if they win by 2 touchdowns. But it's a pass for me. But I would lean Nevada on a better number, but I'm off of this game.
John Ryan, Mountain West action here. Anything for you?
Nothing. The power ratings come in right at 17, so it's a completely neutral game. And let's move on to the next one.
7 p.m. start, Arkansas, Florida, number 6 ranked Florida. The idea on this spot on the Monday show was to wait to get a better number, and that really hasn't materialized. Bet365 opened at minus 16.5 for Florida. They're at 16 right now. This total opened up at 62.5. It's now at 60.5. Arkansas coming off their second win in 3 games, 24-13 at home over Tennessee. Arkansas will be without their head coach, Sam Pittman, tested positive for COVID. Razorbacks defensive coordinator Barry Odom will serve as the team's interim head coach. Former Gators quarterback Felipe Franks will be making his return to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. Franks began 2019 as Florida's starting quarterback, knee injury against Kentucky, and then lost his job to Kyle Trask. Franks then transferred to Arkansas. Franks has fared well. He's looked good. A 14-3 touchdown interception rate, 67% of his passes completed. Florida comes in off their second straight win, a very impressive 44-28 victory at home over then number 5 ranked Georgia. Florida ranks 19th in the country, 495.4 yards per game, 12th in scoring at 42.4 points per contest. Here we go, SEC action. John Ryan, Arkansas, Florida.
Well, again, this is a pretty easy one to pick. I think it's a team, Arkansas, who is having one of the better recovery type seasons in recent memory. As we know, I think they went 2 full seasons without more than a conference win. And they have won every game against the spread this year. So the marketplace is still catching up to them. But I think they have, going up against this Gators team, which I get so tired of hearing it. People say, oh, their defense sucks. Their defense sucks. Well, the offense scores so rapidly that the defense has to be back on the field, and defenses get tired. We've seen that plenty of time historically with teams that score at will the way the Gators have. And I said for weeks, Georgia's defense is a very good defense. They just happen to play in the SEC where the offenses are prolific, and the Gators scoring that many on that type of defense, I would not want to be playing defense for Arkansas. Further, the Gators control their destiny now in the SEC and are destined to play in the SEC championship game, probably against Alabama, as long as they don't have a slip. So I think Florida here is definitely the play. There was a couple. Let me just scroll down here just real quick. They're 11-2 in home games after scoring 31 or more points in 5 consecutive games in the history of the program. So there's not going to be a letdown in the offense. Offense is fun to play. It's usually defenses that have letdowns, but I think Florida rolls.
Florida rolls from John Ryan. Let's see what Ragoo has to say about this SEC spot. Florida sitting 4-1 in the SEC. Do they smash and grab here against Arkansas?
When I first initially looked at this game, I thought that Arkansas was going to probably play a tough game, which they probably will. And as much as it pains me to talk about the Gators, even though they're right up the street and I like the other team a little bit north of them, this Gator team, I think, has tremendous value to win the whole NCAA championship in my book.
Wow.
Because like John broke it down, they're gonna get there to the championship game, and they're probably gonna be like 1 game away from playing for the national championship. And if you can get them at 25-1 right now, I think it's a steal. And I did bet them outside of my Tennessee 100-1 bet. That's kind of went down to 12. But I got Florida at plus 600 for the SEC championship. But let's talk about today's game. All right, so Arkansas, they run at pace, just like Florida does, but they don't net the points on the board. They're averaging like 24 points a game. Their defense is pretty solid. I think Georgia does, like to John's point, has the better defense. And they're a nice team here. But I didn't get to the window early, but I think I'm going to get to the window late with the Gators here. I think they're going to score probably 6 or 7 touchdowns here, where you might get 3 touchdowns from Arkansas. So I think it's a double-up spot for the Gators, and I will get to the window with the Gators here.
Double-up spot. Ragoo, do you have any feel on this total, 62.5 down to 60.5?
I like the over. I mean, I think Florida probably score between 42 and 49 points, and I see Arkansas scoring. I think you'll see close to 70 points in this game.
Close to 70 points in this game. Interesting. And I'm just going to take a quick look at what Florida's team total is. I know we're going to be quick here, but the Florida team total at 38.5.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet. I think Florida gets 42.
I like the over. And by the way, that color behind me is the official color of the Florida Gators. And that's a story I can't go into at this time, but that actually is the color.
It's gorgeous, John. Gorgeous. Brings out the color of your eyes.
Oh, it does.
Let's move on to 11th ranked Oregon at Washington State, little Pac-12 action. Oregon opened their season with an impressive 35-14 win at home over Stanford. Washington State opened with a 38-28 win at Oregon State. And we are dealing yes, I watched it at Oregon State. This is Oregon. Sorry, I was in the wrong spot there. Oregon opening up as 7.5-point favorites. That's rocketed up to 10.5. This total opened up at 58.5, now 57.5. Tricky Pac-12 action, just the second week of their season. John Ryan, anything interest you here?
No, but you brought the confusion there because Oregon State's playing Washington, Washington State's playing Oregon. So even I get a little confused with that too. But anyway, in this game, the line I think is a bit high right now for Oregon. People again assume Oregon is similar to teams of the past. They're really not this year. So if anything, I kind of like the Cougars in this spot at home against Oregon, just as a lean.
All right. Locking in these notes here. Ragoo, anything to add here in this Pac-12 battle?
I think Oregon is probably the best defensive team outside of Utah on the West Coast. I think, like John says, they are going through their trials and tribulations on the offensive side. But be that as it may, I think they're still a solid coach football team. I think they do have pieces in place. And I think they get the number here. I think they cover it going away. I think they win by at least 2 touchdowns.
2-touchdown win here for Oregon, and 3-point move at Bet365. More at other books is going to sadly keep me off this spot. Let's move on to another 7 p.m. game, the final 7 p.m. game, 19th ranked SMU at Tulsa. I made the mistake of moving on Tulsa after our 1 p.m. show. They're now dogs in this matchup, although money's coming back. A little bit of money's coming back in on Tulsa. This total opened at 63 and is now at 64.5 for 65. And, John, on Monday you said wait to bet the under. I'm very curious to see if you still like that. SMU 7-1, 4-1 in the American. Tulsa 3-1, 3-0 in the American. SMU coming off a comfortable 47-23 win at Temple. Tulsa had last week off. We last saw them in their third straight win, a much tighter than expected 34-30 win at home over East Carolina. John, do you still like that under, and is there anything else you're interested in here, SMU Tulsa?
I do like the under, Jimmy, and I'm looking at the betting flows right now just to double check a few things. The line has gone SMU's way. I have actually 69% of the money and 60% of the tickets. So in order for Tulsa to win this game, they have to stay under the total, and I firmly think Tulsa is still a play, as we talked about on Monday as well. But my stronger play is on the under in this matchup. I think the public betting going on SMU, they're a very solid team. But let's not forget, Tulsa can really run the ball, and it's a power running game that wears down defensive fronts, and we've seen that in just about every game they've played this year. I don't think SMU has faced this type of smash mouth physical football that Tulsa can bring to a game. And I think that's why Tulsa will control the pace of the game. They'll control the line of scrimmage, and they'll grind their way to a win.
Chris Richardson also says, love Tulsa. Their defense is the real deal. Ragoo, little American action, SMU, Tulsa.
I'm on the opposite side with the total. I'm on the over. I think even though, like John says, they might have the rushing attack, they've been averaging like 3.5 yards a rush, where SMU's been averaging 5 yards a rush because that pass softens up the defenses for the run. And I think they're going to play – both are going to play at pace. So depending on which one's going to get tired first, I think Tulsa is probably not going to run out of gas. They're going to get their share of points. And that's a great point that John brings up. They're going to try to control the line of scrimmage to try to keep their team off the field. But I think they're going to be playing catch-up here with SMU, and I think the game goes over the total.
Interesting. Just a handful of games left on the card. Great job, Ragoo and John Ryan. I've enjoyed this immensely, and everybody in the chat rolling with us. 7:30 p.m. Florida State, North Carolina State. Florida State 1-5 in the ACC, 2-5 overall. North Carolina State 4-3 in the ACC where all their games have played. Florida State coming off their third loss in 4 games, 41-17 at home to Pittsburgh. NC State coming off their second consecutive loss, 44-41 at home to Miami, and they look pretty good in that game. We are dealing with NC State opening up as 6.5-point favorites. That's ballooned up to 10.5. This total stayed firm at 59.5. For all things Florida State, we go to our man Big Ragoo, and let's do that right now. Florida State, NC State, take it away, my man.
If you've been reading the headlines, you've seen that we lost 3 players. We lost Marvin Wilson to an injury. He's going to be gone. Blackman's gone, and Terry has been dismissed too. So basically, three key players that kind of shook the locker room up a little bit on the defensive side, but they kind of worked things out. But for the most part now, you're going to say, maybe through attrition, some things might happen for this squad here. But they're going to have their issues on the offensive line too. They lost a key offensive lineman to injury. So I think Florida State, though, on the positive side of things, they've scored like the last 4 games on their first drive. They had a touchdown. But they do shit all over themselves in the second half really bad. So my look here is to get the maybe some value on the first half number with Florida State. If they do go out and score a touchdown in the first drive, that puts them in a good position to cover the first half number. So I'm going to be looking at Florida State to cover the first half on the plus side of things. I don't know what that number is, but I'm going to blindly bet that.
I will get you that number. Very, very interesting look here, backing Florida State in that spot. Let's hear from John Ryan. What do you think about Ragoo's look?
I'm a pass on this game. I just feel there's a lot of uncertainties. Jordan Travis, Florida State quarterback, has really been a huge positive for that team, but he's questionable, undisclosed reasons why, but I think he actually did come out of the game in the third quarter of that game. Do you know that, Big Ragoo?
Yeah. He's questionable. I think he should get the start.
Yeah, so I think it was injuries listed as undisclosed, but that has to weigh on your decision making too. Looking at this game, so I'm a pass, but I fully respect that first half play though.
That's sitting at 6 or 6.5, depending on where you shop. Robert Allen says, "I hate Florida State today." Temple, UCF, we're going back to the American here. Temple coming off their 4th loss in 5 games to start the season, 47-23 at home to SMU. UCF coming off their 2nd straight win, 44-21 at Houston. Temple 1-4 in the American, UCF 4-2, 3-2 in the American. Another spot where we're dealing with Florida football, so we go to our man Big Ragoo. UCF 25.5-point favorites. This total at 76.5. Ragoo, what's the move?
That's an uphill climb, not for the margin of victory by UCF, but does Temple help UCF get to that number, to go over that huge number? And that was a pretty good lean I had. You usually don't equate UCF and unders, but because of what Temple's all about and how they go about their business, I mean, they're pretty an upscale football program too, 77 plays per game, but UCF hitting up in the 90s. When UCF can make plays when they have to, big number here to cover for them, which I'm kind of on the fence with that one, but I would lean more towards the under than UCF getting over the margin of victory here. So I don't think they get up into the 80s in this game. I think it stays possibly in the lower 70s to higher 60s. I don't think it gets quite to that number.
Are you going to get to the window on the under?
Yeah, I'm gonna lean. Yeah, I'm getting to the window with the under in this game.
Very, very interesting. John Ryan, what do you think of that?
Well, I think that's how it goes because Temple, I have the power rating line at 26. So we're pretty much right there. But with the quarterback problems on Temple, and unless Russo is actually going to play, I don't think it matters who is the quarterback for Temple. UCF is going to roll. And the favorites that are, 24 or more points, oftentimes the parlay is to take them and the under. And, based on what you guys are saying, I think that's a good opportunity for this game. So unless Russo starts, I don't think Temple has a prayer of even being competitive in this game.
When you hear that, Ragoo, do you think that we should move on UCF with the 25.5, or you stick just to the under?
I think under is the more solid play, but I wasn't sure about the Russo situation. So if that's the case, then maybe that's a look too on laying the points with UCF at the bounce house and score early. Maybe a good first half look too.
Just a couple more games left here, and we got to get to the best bets and leave you guys time to get to the window. We have a Big Ten matchup, 13th ranked Wisconsin at Michigan. Wisconsin opened their season with a 45-7 win at home over Illinois before COVID derailed their season. So they're going to be back in action after a 3-week interruption. Graham Mertz, 28-21, 248 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2 days later, Mertz tests positive for COVID. They could be without up to 17 players in Ann Arbor, which makes things very difficult to bet. But if you're judging by the market, Wisconsin opens up as 2.5-point favorites, now 6.5-point favorites. So Mertz tested positive on October 24th. So what's 21 days after that? Today. So he's eligible to play. Their backup, Chase Wolf, also tested positive for COVID-19. We don't know which day that happened. Michigan coming off their second straight loss, 38-31 in Indiana. Michigan defense that used to be scary has allowed 909 total yards in the last 2 games. John Ryan, any move for you here in this Big Ten action clouded by COVID?
I think the play is Wisconsin, and I've been watching the abbreviated games after the condensed versions, and Michigan their back end of their defense is terrible. I don't know how else to describe it. I can't sugarcoat it. But a lot of the reason is they were without Hutchinson last week. They had no pressure coming off the perimeter against the quarterback, and he just stood there and just absolutely shredded them, like the word implies. Now, in offense, they had problems too because they were missing both their tackles on the offensive line, and that's never a good situation either. So I've never been a big Jim Harbaugh fan, and I don't like seeing anybody get fired because that's not a good situation. It's toxicity. But I think his days in Ann Arbor are coming to a close, and the boosters may not wait till the end of the season, COVID or no COVID, as an excuse to keep him. So the team is really. They haven't thrown in the towel. At least I hope they haven't. Otherwise, this is going to be a Wisconsin blowout no matter who plays. But you're right with Mertz. With him under center, I like this game a lot. And I think Wisconsin will win handily.
And do we have any confirmation that he'll be behind under center?
I saw this morning that it was looking that way. Let me just pull up my screen here and see if there's any update.
Ragoo, anything for you here in Big Ten action?
Yeah, when I seen the initial line, I was like, okay, this is going to be a tough game here for Wisconsin. With the number only 1-point favorite, then all the news coming about. So that got me off the game totally. I was leaning more towards the under in Michigan here, but I'm off the game 100%.
Let's go back. Oh, did anything there, John?
No, it's still listed as questionable.
Let's move to more Big Ten action. 23rd ranked Northwestern at Purdue. Both teams coming undefeated. Northwestern coming off their 3rd straight win, start season 21-13 at home over Nebraska. Purdue coming off a 31-24 win at Illinois. And what are we getting here? Oh, yeah, this was supposed to be earlier. Northwestern opening up as 1-point favorites, now 3 or 3.5. This total at 49.5. We'll go back to John Ryan. Anything for you here, Northwestern, Purdue?
It's hard to tell how Purdue's going to show up in this game. I don't have a real good feel for what their weaknesses are or their strengths. I mean, you have a small sample size. I think it's wonderful that Northwestern's 3-0. This is another feel-good story like the Indiana Hoosiers, but I don't think Northwestern is as good as that team. But it would be nice to see Northwestern at top of that division with a 4-0 record. I would not bet Purdue. But if you like Northwestern, I can't chase you off that bridge.
Big Ragoo, anything for you in that Big Ten finale?
I was leaning Northwestern, laying the points here.
And that is now – you have to get in right away if you want the threes before that hook jumps on. Let's move on to SEC action. South Carolina at Ole Miss. South Carolina coming off 48-3 loss at home to Texas A&M. Ole Miss was off last week. They're coming off stopping a 3-game losing streak with a 54-21 loss at Vanderbilt. Ole Miss opens up as 8.5-point favorites. That's ballooned up to 13.5. This total 71.5 down to 70.5. SEC action. South Carolina, Ole Miss. Let's go to Ragoo. Anything for you here?
Yeah, I'm taking the underdog here. As bad as they are. We know Muschamp was going to be on a hot seat all season long. They play some tough opponents. That's a big number on the total and the spread. They're expecting points to be scored here. I don't see where all those points are going to come from, as bad as South Carolina has been. But you know what? I think the Gamecocks going to show up for this game, and I think they're going to keep it close. So I'm going to take South Carolina as a best bet.
South Carolina is a best bet. Wow. That I love it. Going up against that huge market move. John Ryan, what do you think of the Gamecocks as best bet?
I don't have a play on either side, but I'll mention this quickly. Ole Miss is 1-9 against the spread after gaining 525 or more yards in each of their last 2 games in games played over the last 3 seasons. So 1-9, that sounds awful, but you also have to consider they have Lane Kiffin, and it's a totally different culture and environment. So these are the times, and this is just an example I wanted to bring out, where the 1-9 sounds very impressive, and you should bet against Ole Miss in this situation. But when you look at it with a little bit of logic, it basically gets disqualified. But I do like where Big Ragoo is on this game, and I think that is justifiably a best bet. But I'm a pass on it.
Wow, and you're going heads up. Ragoo against Chris Richardson. Lowbagger in the chat says, Ole Miss, my best bet. South Carolina is falling apart. Very exciting addition to the late game action. So we just have 2 games left on the card, and we'll get over them very quickly here and then get to our best bets. Thank you guys so much for rolling with us, and big thank you to our experts. What other show do you see every single game capped and done so well? 10:30 p.m. Eastern, UNLV at San Jose State. UNLV 0-3 in the Mountain West. San Jose 3-0 in the Mountain West. UNLV's opened their season with 3 straight double-digit losses. Most recently, they lost 40-27 at home to Fresno State. The opposite for San Jose State. They've opened their season with 3 straight double-digit wins, coming off a shocking 28-17 win at home over San Diego State as 10-point dogs. This game pops off at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Degenerate special is what they call it. San Jose State opening up as 16.5-point favorites. That's down to 15.5 at the indicator books, 16 across the board mostly, and 58 opening total at Bet365. That's moved up to 58.5 or 59. Little Mountain West action with UNLV involved. Ragoo, fresh back from his big trip to Vegas. Any interest in this game, Ragoo?
UNLV, we know they have a little bit of athletic ability, but I don't think they're quite there yet. Is San Jose 16 points better? They could possibly be. It's a San Jose or pass here for me. I don't know what the total. We're looking at 57, 58 points.
Yeah, 58.
58. I don't know. Maybe a lean to the under here, because I don't think UNLV is going to put up a ton of points, and maybe San Jose plays down a little bit, just more of a ball control, not a blowout fashion. Maybe I think it's. Maybe a little bit too many points here. Maybe they hit the high 40s, mid 50s here. But mid 50s is never dangerous at 58, 59. Maybe they just sneak under the total. I'm not comfortable laying 16, but I think I would lean under.
A lean towards the under for Big Ragoo. Anything for you, John?
I would lean towards San Jose State in this game. I think it's fair to say Nevada's defense is not a good one. And San Jose State has done well against bad defenses in their past. In fact, they're 36-16-1 against teams who give up 34 or more points per game. They're also 22-7 with 2 pushes against teams that are outscored by 17 or more points per game, which is obviously Nevada. So for that reason, I like San Jose quite a bit. And, of course, based on the betting line here, they're going to score more than 28 points in this game, and that puts San Jose State into an 88% winning situation over the last 10 years.
San Jose State, are you going to get to the window there, John?
No. The reason I won't is because the money flows are actually coming in on UNLV at a higher percentage of money than San Jose State. So that neutralized everything that I just said. So this would be a lean.
A lean for John Ryan. And let's move on to the final game on the card, and then we'll get to best bets quickly. A little Pac-12 action, 11 p.m. Eastern, Oregon State at Washington. Both Jonathan Smith and Jimmy Lake were assistants under Chris Peterson and now face off for the first time as head coaches. That's the biggest storyline in this game. Oregon State opened their season with a 38-28 loss at home to Washington State. Running back Jermar Jefferson looked excellent. 3 touchdowns. He was a beast. It remains unclear who's going to be starting for the Huskies. That's the biggest spot that we don't know about. What we do know is Richard Newton is going to be the heir to Myles Gaskin and standout freshman in 2019, and looking forward to watch him run. Both teams can move the ball on the ground. Washington opening up as 13-point favorites, now 14. This total has dropped 6 points from 57.5 to 51. Ragoo, last game on the card. Spectacular work getting through this whole card. That's so cool. I get off on, and I apologize because it puts you guys under such duress.
That's all right. No, we enjoy it, man. We love the pressure. So if you look at the number here, 14 points, 57 down to 51, right? So everybody's looking towards that under, it looks like. And I know the majority of money is coming in on Oregon State, even though the line's kind of ticked up a hair or just kind of hanging around where the number is. So that would put me on the Oregon State side, even though Washington had success, the last 8, like with 6-2 over the last 8, I believe. But I don't know, maybe the numbers, it's indicative of the number, being that, 2 touchdowns better. I would lean Oregon State, maybe getting a double-digit loss under the, maybe not quite the 14. Maybe Washington pulls away by 10 points, and then the under is probably the solid look there too. But we're away from that big portion of the number. 51 might be pushing it to try to get the game under. So I think I think it bodes well. If you like Oregon State, lean towards the under. I would take the Oregon State side versus the number underneath the total.
Anything for you here in this last game of the night, John?
Absolutely not, Jimmy. I wish I had something to talk about, but on this game, I really have nothing.
It's tricky. Pac-12, and then we haven't seen Washington Huskies yet, so and these coaches know each other so well. So it's a very tricky spot. Tough to get a late night win out of. There we go. We've capped every single game on the board, and we are 8 minutes away from kickoff, and I've got to get some stuff into. Big Ragoo, quickly, your best bets for 12 o'clock and for the whole card.
Yeah, Wake Forest is my early best bet, plus the 13.5. I'm on South Carolina plus the 12.5, maybe get 13 hopefully. The SMU side, with the total there, and then Oregon laying the wood.
I love it, Ragoo. John Ryan, 12 o'clock best bets and best bet rest of the card.
Virginia Tech in the noon game, and then Tulsa later on.
I love it. So we have both of our experts going against big market moves as best bets. That's about as exciting as Captain gets to me. So Tulsa, market's gone against John, no fear. And then for Big Ragoo, market's gone against South Carolina and no fear. That's so exciting. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to our cappers in the chat. I'd read all the names out, but I've got to put in some 12 o'clock action in myself. So much fun. So much fun. All you guys in the chat, thank you for joining us. John Ryan, Big Ragoo, spectacular work. I can't wait to work with you guys again. Have a big Saturday, and thank you guys. Also, the couple of things, if you want to watch this again, it's only going to be available on at odds.com. So I'll put this link in. Also, I'd like to quickly put in one more time the article by our John Ryan. I got to be fast here because I got to get some action in myself. This is a projected winning bets article from John Ryan. I'm going to pop this into the chat for you guys. There you go. Get paid there. And then if you want to watch this again, you can only watch it here on this link. I'm going to pop that in, copy there. And thank you. There we go. Okay. Let's get paid. Have a giant Saturday. And big thanks to Ragoo and John Ryan. Spectacular job, you guys.
All right, guys.
Thanks very much, everybody.